Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. Hi, Sandi Bachom. It's so nice to see you. Bachom,
hi, guys. You guys are so smart. You make my head hurt.
Oh,
I love listening
Noel makes
to
my
you.
head hurt because he also knows everybody. It's not that he's just so smart about everything. He knows everyone we're talking about all the time. And it's like, wow, how do you even keep a memory of all that? But he's good at that.
I was in, speaking of Epstein, an expert, I was at a stakeout at the fundraiser.
Oh, that same
fundraiser. And his neighbor across the street is Bill Cosby.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention.
You know that, right? Yeah. And the guy from, he was the crying, after 9/11, he was the crying CEO.
Howard Lutnick.
Right? He lost everybody in his next door. Yeah. That was where the fundraiser was.
And Howard Lutnick bought his townhouse from Jeffrey Epstein's brother, brokered that deal.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was there. He knows everybody. And he knows everything.
Yeah.
I was there that night too. So I saw you, Sandi, because I rode my bike by and I said, "What's going on?" Yeah,
I didn't know you then.
Because I go to a meeting down the street and I happen to be like right on Madison, 70th and Madison. So I happened to go by and I said, "What's going on?" And they're like, "The president's in town." And I saw Steve Wynn, who doesn't leave Las Vegas anymore.
My God.
He's blind, basically. He was being led by his assistant through the crowd.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's a big deal if they made Steve come out here.
Oh, he was pissed because he couldn't get through the barricades. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, he walked right past me. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
But I just want to say one thing about that house. I was also in the SDNY press conference when he was arrested, and nobody knew that he was going to be arrested, only the FBI. And they fired Berman, by the way. They fired the head of the SDNY who nailed him. And nobody knew that he was going to be arrested. They got him at Teterboro when his plane landed. And when they raided that apartment, that townhouse, whatever, there were 1,700 pictures of naked, semi-clothed, provocative underage girls on the wall. And he had this massage room that you were referring to, Noel, and he brought everybody to see the massage room. It was part of his thing. You can't have gone into that place without knowing what he was up to. It's impossible because he was so proud of it.
He was proud of it, and he was also trying to entrap people, so that's why he had the pictures up in the first place. Hey, Sandi, you've done this incredible TikTok, which I'm so impressed by, because what you've done in a minute-by-minute basis is look back at January the 6th, and there's a few things that really stand out. I want to get to the thing that really stood out to me, which was the 5 sort of minutes, or maybe it was more like 15 minutes between 10 past 2 till about maybe 2:30 or so. But before we do that, what are the things that stood out to you earlier on in the day?
First of all, there were no cops. I was talking to another journalist who was there, and we were in Charlottesville together, and we follow right-wing extremism. And any time that there are Proud Boys or any kind of potential problem like that, the cops are they would swoop down, the DC cops swoop down on their bicycles, like you talk about jumping out of the bushes. Yeah. The other 2 Stop the Steal rallies, there were dust-ups with the Proud Boys, and the one on December 12th was very violent. There were 4 stabbings involving Proud Boys. That more Proud Boys than we'd ever seen in our lives. But the cops were everywhere. And during the Kavanaugh hearings, you can't get into those buildings and protest. You can't bring a sign. And the minute you start chanting, they come and they arrest you. I was one where Amy Schumer was arrested. Amy Schumer was arrested protesting Kavanaugh. And then when they're ready for their civil disobedience, they all sit down and they start screaming like crazy. And the cops come from everywhere and they arrest the press. Also, they tried to arrest me. So the fact that those people were in there I got there at 1 and I left at 5:30. I never saw one cop because I didn't know what was going on in the front because it was such chaos.
And you also said that at 10:30 they were there as well, doing
The Proud Boys
Proud Boys were there.
met.
So this is
Yeah,
2.5 hours doing a reconnaissance visit around. Is that the implication?
All the people in that Proud Boys video that they arrived at 10:30 that morning at the Washington Monument, and they left at 10:41. They didn't stay there long. They were all wearing orange caps. They weren't wearing any Fred Perry shirts. They had decided that they were going to go incognito. Their leader, Enrique, had been arrested. I don't remember when he was arrested. It was always fishy to me that he was arrested. I thought that was so he could.
Really interesting. At 10:30, let's just say that they were there and they took a bit of a tour around the place. But then we get to what happens at around the 12:15. They breach through the outer perimeter of the Capitol.
53.
12:53.
12:55. There was a. I was on the front side, the kind of classic you look up and it's got the dome of the Capitol.
Here, I'll help you put this. I've
side.
changed these on the fly just before we got on the show because we had some different numbers. But
I'm sorry, and that was my bad.
So tell us exactly where you were stationed.
Okay, I was stationed. Is this the mob breaches Capitol West? Okay, I'm number 5.
Around number 5.
So
that's
I
right.
came. See, there's up at the top of your thing. There's I think that's Pennsylvania Avenue. It comes down and there's a little statue there. It looks like a little needle thing on it in the upper left-hand corner of your screen.
Right.
That is, he said, we're going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm going to be with you. And apparently that was a spontaneous suggestion because they didn't have a permit.
Oh,
they didn't have a permit.
And they did have a permit.
They marched down Pennsylvania Avenue.
But you're talking about this area right above now, which says the breaches the Capitol Hill. I wish you could see my arrow, but you can't.
Yeah, only just above it. Yeah. Breaches is just above. There's a little.
I think that's Constitution.
There.
Yeah, I think that's Constitution. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's where the original breach happened. Where that statue is, we see some cars parked there in between the 211, in between number 1 and number 5. Okay. That's the barricade, and that's the initial breach, right? That's a 12. 53,
that was the initial breach, and they weren't wearing any protective gear because Chris Miller had written a letter on January 4th that nobody's talking about, saying that the cops couldn't wear any protective gear and that they had to leave the protesters alone. It was so bizarre. And they get him up there on Capitol Hill, and nobody asks him this question about the letter.
Now, I find this fascinating. I find the fact that you were able to show us in your TikTok these 5 critical moments that happened. And they only happened between, 2:11 and 2:45, I think is what you said?
Yes.
So we're talking about 35 minutes of time.
The first time the National Guard should have been called was at 12:53 because there were like thousands of people. First, a small group was the group that I had filmed. All of the Proud Boys, they were named something. They were called the Mercenary Self-Defense, self-defense. They were all the people that were indicted for conspiracy. There was Pizzola, and they showed up there, and then they were the first to breach. So at 2:11, Pizzola breached. Then they got up to the steps. So their goal was to get into the Capitol.
Right.
And they just started fighting with these cops. There was a handful of cops there, and they're completely outnumbered and ill-equipped to handle. So why the Capitol Police and the National Guard weren't called in when they started this hand-to-hand combat?
Oh yeah, they should have been called in right away.
People
it's at 12:53. They should have been there beforehand. Let's be completely honest. There's no way that there was no good reason to stand down the National Guard.
No.
The only reason they come up with is that they claim it was for optics. So they were concerned about. But I mean, what optics? Optics that you got were way worse. I'd rather have the police standing off against these guys than allowing them in.
Chris Miller and his pals, they were put in to do exactly what they did on January 6th. November 13th, it was 11th or 13th. Trump fired everybody in all the brass in the Pentagon, and everybody goes, what the hell is he doing that for? Yeah. This is why he did it, because the police situation in DC is so bizarre that you can't call the Capitol. You have to go through a chain of command. It has to be the sergeant at arms. And so every time they'd ask for help, which is on my little thing here, they were slow walked, they were denied, out and out denied.
When
and
do you have the first request for help actually coming down? When was it?
So this guy Sund, was he the Capitol Police guy?
I think he was a Capitol Police guy. It's correct.
Sund was
former Capitol Police guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So Sund was alerted that they had breached they'd gotten to the windows, and that was about 1 o'clock. Now Trump is still speaking now. Mm-hmm. He was an hour late. When the first breach occurred, Trump is still talking. He was giving them cover, right?
I think he said that at 1:59 was when Sund received the first reports that rioters have breached the windows.
Yes, 1:59, right, exactly.
Reached the windows.
Now, they had been fighting for 12:53, 1:53, a good hour, maybe longer at that point. And now they're doing hand-to-hand combat. And one of my photographer friends, Stephanie Keith, was there photographing going towards the tunnel, the famous tunnel shot, and another friend shot the guy being crushed in the tunnel. Stephanie said when she was shooting them, and she was a veteran of Charlottesville, and she said there was a bloodlust in their eyes. She'd never seen anything like that before.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That there was a bloodlust. Once they breached that little flimsy barricade, then you look behind it, there was thousands of people. Some say 30,000 people. And they were streaming.
So you're talking, it starts off here, and then at 12:53, they break through here.
And then the cops held them at bay for a while, somewhere there on the first landing.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's sort of what happened. And then it's only at 2:11, as you see here in number 2, that they actually storm up the stairs. And now what you're adding to this mixture in here is that at 1:59, Sund receives his first report that the rioters had reached the windows. So this is when he first calls for the National Guard at 1:59. Is that correct?
He calls. No, because that wasn't he can't call who the only person that can call the National Guard is. Who? The President of the United States.
Okay, so then he starts going up the chain, doesn't he? I think.
And Chris Miller, remember Chris Miller kept saying, did you talk to the president? He says, I didn't need to. I was given all the authority. Did you catch that in his interview?
I did catch that.
I was given all the authority I needed. He knew exactly what he was doing. At 1:59, he asks, it says, at 1:34, Mayor Bowser asked Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy, another McCarthy, for federal help. She's the mayor. Mm-hmm. He reports to Miller. Right. Bowser told the request must come from the Capitol Police. So they stonewalled them.
Right, they changed the rules, right? Because instead of it being go directly, they now had to go to the Pentagon to get the permission.
Exactly. So
which is never the case before.
They had the Capitol Police, I forget who it says but it's not the mayor. Like normally in New York City, the mayor would call up whatever. But it's very weird in Washington, D.C. because the Capitol Police only work at the Capitol and they guard the Capitol.
But let's go through this. So now you've got them reaching the windows. And now you said at 2:11, Pizzola breaks through the window to the north. And it's somewhere around here, we think, right? Maybe somewhere out there.
The window on the north. Yes, exactly. He throws
shield, a glass shield, like a plastic shield. Yeah. And so then by this time, the mob at position number 2 over here starts, this is all the way around here, all this whole area that they've gathered here. They start storming the steps where they've been held back between 12:53 and 2:11. They've been held back. But at this point, they start storming through. Tonight's show is brought to you by Helix Sleep, and they have a special offer for narrative viewers. I've heard it from so many people. The one thing that's changed since January is their sleep. Not waking up worrying about what the president might have done or said or tweeted makes the world of a difference. I don't think I had a good solid night's sleep in 4 years. And it wasn't only the president. My 10-year-old mattress, which started life as a 12-inch foam mattress, had shrunk to an 8-inch mattress, and getting out of bed was often more of a slide than a bounce. It was time for a new mattress. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? Changing the course of a country can take a village. Changing the course of your sleep takes a quiz. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/narrative. That's the way we spell narrative, NARATIV. That's helixsleep.com/narrative for up to $200 off and 2 free pillows just for you.
212, a friend of mine, Ron Haviv, a still photographer, war photographer, was on the other side, which is the southwest.
There's the rioters are now breaking through the window over there.
And that breach took them right to where the officer was trying to hold back the crowd that was already inside from the other side. He was trying to take Goodman hero, and he's trying to take them away. The other thing about the people who went inside is to say how brave they were, because my friend of mine, a woman, Aaliyah from Scootercaster, her footage is seen all the time on the news. This is FDN News. And she's a little thing, and she was so terrified to go inside because she thought they were going to start shooting. She assumed they would start
shooting.
Some of
the semi-automatic weapon we discovered today. We just learned that today.
Oh,
that it walked in with a semi-automatic weapon.
Well, she said to one of the cops, she gets pushed in. You don't want to get between the protesters and the cops, which she wound up. And she goes, I'm pressed. Please don't shoot me, she said.
There's 215 then, is this correct? Is the breach on the east side. Now, this is the side that's least protected because there's not a lot of security around here because they planned all their security around the other side because that's where they were coming from. That's where the protesters were coming from. So this side was a little exposed, and this mob breach is actually quite horrific. This whatever happens here on the east side is some of the worst images we've seen of the entire time.
Yes.
And this lasts on from like between 2:15 to 2:45. You said the fighting over there?
Something like that, yeah. And then I'm in front over.
You're over here somewhere, right?
Over where
the arrow is
where
down?
the fight where take the where the Capitol is and go back. There's a road there, and when I arrived, people were going over the fences. There were these green wire fences, and they were going, "Come on, patriots! It's now or never. Take back your country and move up. Let the men move up, and like the women stay back. And we need some fighters. You want to fight for your country." Fight for Trump. They chant, fight for Trump. So those were all like going up on in front of the Capitol. Thousands of them.
But what you're seeing essentially and then there's one last thing here. The last thing that happened, the last move was the breach of the Capitol from the west. So they broke through the stairs up here and they came through the top here or through the bottom, and then they broke through the west side. So literally, it almost looks like within 10 minutes, they were able to breach 4 sides of Capitol.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you something about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. I know they're not watching. They're morons. They were the soldiers. Who were the generals? General Flynn is a general.
Yeah.
This was a tactical, I don't know the terms for it.
This was a military maneuver. It looked like a military maneuver because they surrounded the building on all 4 sides. And
within 5 minutes,
they're able to break through. This is something they practiced. It's something they were in communication on. It's something that they knew they were going to do at a specific time because it all unfolded at a specific time. There's no ways you can look at this and say this is coincidental that all 4 sides were breached at exactly the same time.
Exactly.
It must have been a pre-rehearsed and orchestrated event.
The Oath Keepers' communication phone records are really interesting. So at 1 o'clock, the Oath Keepers, they make a total of 2 calls within 3-minute calls. The first search the police barricade on the grounds on the northwest side. So they started these communicating at 1 o'clock. And then there was a thing with a golf cart.
Communicating with each other?
Yeah, we don't know. Okay. Some people think they were communicating with Roger Stone because we don't know. They think maybe in the White House. This is what we have to find out. Who were the Oath Keepers communicating with? Because the guys that were the Proud Boys, whoever the lieutenants were, there were 3. This was the 3rd this was the third Stop the Steal, and the other two, I followed the Proud Boys and the other two, and they at night they would go out to the mall and they would do these weird maneuvers and they would pray like they were going to war. They'd get down on a knee and they talk about if they survived.
Do you think they were
this.
practicing before when you went to see them, that they were at least surveying the land or surveying what it might look like? Wow.
Yeah. So, and they were communicating on a special channel called Boots on the Ground. You couldn't get a cell.
Right.
So there was some kind of app they were using.
When you said to me earlier about a golf cart, my ears perked up because there was apparently reports of a group of them that was stationed not that far away. Troops, about a mile away, that might have been the Oath Keepers. And they were stationed there just as backup if they were needed. Talk about a military operation.
Once the first breach occurred, the 211 breach, they hopped in a golf cart, which they had, by the way, at that hotel. They were staying at Freedom Plaza because I filmed Roger Stone. I filmed them and Roger Stone at the speech the night before on the 5th. And the Oath Keepers were his security. And he was staying at the hotel across. No, what's that beautiful hotel across the street where Lincoln stayed? I forget the name of it. It's right across from Freedom Plaza.
I can't remember the name. I know it, but I can't
Very
remember the name.
famous hotel. It's beautiful, magnificent hotel. So Roger Stone was staying there, and the Oath Keepers took him in, and I photographed that. But there at one point there was a golf cart with Roger Stone the next morning, the morning of the 6th, and with the Oath Keepers. So somehow they got a golf cart.
Yeah, they seem to have a pre-existing group stationed nearby, which I thought was fascinating. Sandi, this is really well done. Thank you so much for putting this particular 5 minutes and 10 minutes, I think, is misunderstood by people. I think it feels to everyone like it was some sort of organic, just, happen thing. That, yes, it was intended and they had planned to storm it, but it was, it just naturally unfolded. It doesn't look like this to me when I look at these 5 minutes or these 10 minutes here. It looks so coordinated.
We did a show right after it happened. I think I was on your show in the 7th. But when I was watching that footage live and I saw the first wave of people that Sandi just talked about, and they took those barricades, which are called bike racks. They're called bicycle racks in like the nomenclature of police. They took those bike racks, immediately took them sideways and started scaling the western wall of the
Capitol. Mentioning that.
You don't do that by accident. That's not an improvisation kind of move. That's a plan for it. We're going up. We're turning these things. We're turning them into ladders. You wouldn't think of that right away because they all did it in concert with each other. Like 3 or 4 of them did it at the same time.
So somewhere they had been practicing this over and over again.
To do this well,
to do this a coordinated way. You'd have to
organize
had
bulletproof vests. All the press, I had my gas mask, which I can never put on, goggles, hard hat. I don't have a bulletproof vest because I run. But all of the press had that, and all of them they were dressed for battle. That wasn't a normal rally.
No, that's for sure.
And I heard people saying, what are we supposed to do? Like the kind of the normal people out front where, like the mom and pops, they go, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to go around back? So they knew what they were there for. But what was going to happen the next day? Were they going to move in?
Sure.
I think they wanted bloodshed. I think they wanted to attack the vice president or Pelosi or something, Nancy Pelosi. And I think that those bombs were crucial. I think those pipe bombs would have gone off. And then Trump could have declared martial law. He could have said, there's an attack on our country. I have to stop everything, stop the count right now. Those guys, in a way, that MAGA army was like, they were rubes. They were participating in a con that they didn't see the whole con. Right. Had they been successful in their violence, they would have gotten turned on. Trump would have turned the military on them, but he would have used that excuse to shut down the country and just sow chaos. And he would have done what he's doing now. After he shut it down and did military law, he would have said, hey, the vote was fake anyway. Now that we're finding out this happened, Arizona doesn't count, Georgia doesn't count, and he would have thrown it out and we would have still been dealing with it. We would have had an acting President Trump right now.
And that was their plan. That was their plan. They had just said so many times. Their intention was martial law, and that President Trump would still be the president after that date.
Yes.
You're so
But
right. This was the.
You know what QAnon on the 12th of December, this QAnon woman said, I said, what do you think about all this? And she goes, General Flynn is supposed to tell Donald Trump to declare martial law and have a new election overseen by the military.
Right.
Yeah,
it would have been a
exactly
junta. It would have been a military junta.
I said, well, you could move to Venezuela. You could just.
And the person who was involved in all of that, the person who said at the beginning, one of the persons who said at the beginning, we're not going to accept the election results, were Kevin McCarthy, were Lindsey Graham, and Ted Cruz. So all these big shots within the Republican Party were right there preparing for this coup. They were intending to take a coup. No wonder they don't want to have an investigation because they were involved in a coup attempt.
And their role in it in the weeks leading up to January 6th was to gin up base, was to put the anger in those folks that would then attack the Capitol.
And we can't ignore it. Because not only is it clear to me that the Republican Party was involved, it's also clear to me that the military was involved. A big chunk of the military was aware of what was going on that day. There's no ways they didn't send in the National Guard because of optics. They didn't send the National Guard because they wanted to let them into the building. They wanted the insurrection. They wanted the coup, because without the coup, they couldn't declare martial law. So they needed the events to happen. Those incredible four-pronged attack from every side of the Capitol. They needed it to happen, and that's why there was no National Guard. And the poor Capitol Police, stuck in the middle there, fighting off this entire throng, they were left there by the military, left there to die if they needed to, so these guys could get in and have their little political show. It's clear to me that that's exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
And how long did it take, Sandy, how long did it take before the police actually did come, the National Guard?
At 5:30.
5:30.
I'm telling you, this is what happened. Trump tweeted it. He tweeted at 2:24 saying that Mike Pence didn't have the courage.
Right.
Meanwhile, they were already inside. He was encouraging them to fight, to keep fighting.
When did they say it? At what time did he tweet that?
2:24, he tweeted it.
So this is within 5 minutes, within 10 minutes of them breaching every side of the Capitol, which we just saw just now.
He tweets for the first time.
He tweets so that they should go after Pence. They're inside for the first time. And on that moment, he's coordinated enough to know that they're inside, and he can then say, go after Pence.
And let's not
think about that.
And let's also mention that Lauren Boebert is tweeting the speaker is no longer in the chamber. She's giving inside operations via social media as to the whereabouts. You know?
Wow. I think I hadn't thought about that 10-minute gap that they just breached.
Yeah.
And then we just heard from the New York Times reporter who did this book on the Secret Service that when Pence gets downstairs to the bunker, they don't have the key. The Secret Service does not have the key. So he's sitting there as a target.
You're kidding.
Yes. And we just heard that today. Wow, that's insane when you think about the President of the United States, former President of the United States, giving this mob directions as soon as they step inside the Capitol, and then telling them to go after the Vice President who is attempting to get into a bunker downstairs but cannot get into the bunker because the Secret Service, which has sworn allegiance to Trump for some reason, has not got the keys over there.
They were wearing MAGA hats.
Wow.
Yeah, MAGA hats.
Wow.
And then, so at 4:10, a guy comes out, and this guy actually got indicted from my video with the Bullhorns, another show, the Bullhorn people.
I remember him.
And he says, I have a message from the president. This is 4:10 p.m. And he goes, and now they're straggling out, and people are, coughing, and they're bloody, and it's like winding down, but they're still fighting. And this guy says, I have a message from the president. And then he reads the tweet. Says Mike Pence doesn't have the courage. And then he encourages them to keep fighting. It's unconstitutional what he did to decertify the votes. And then 10 minutes later, another guy who was inside with a bullhorn says, Mayor Bowser wanted to send in the National Guard, and the Defense Department said, no, thank you. Who said that?
Yeah. How did they know that? How did they get that information? I bet you that was General Flynn's brother, who was in that Zoom meeting. Sandi, thank you so much. You're amazing. So appreciate you joining us tonight. And we'll have you back on. We'll talk some more in the near future about your incredible discoveries, and hopefully we'll have some tape when you come on the show.
Yes, promise.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. She's so amazing.
Thank you,
I love
Sandi.
Sandi so much. Talented journalist she is. We're so lucky to have her in our community. The show's almost over, but we have to talk about one last thing, because you said you were going to talk to me about it, and I can't believe you actually have a UFO story. Egads, what's in the sky? I don't know why people are so obsessing about the UFO thing. I know there was a 60 Minutes thing, and I know everyone thinks that now the aliens are coming, but apparently you've seen them. You've spotted them.
Yeah, it's like all this stuff that's like, I don't talk about this much, but where I grew up in the 80s in the Hudson Valley was known for UFO sightings. I come from a town called Putnam Valley. It's a very kind of blue collar, red state kind of area in upstate New York. So it's not the kind of people that would be given to like being like, I saw UFO. Like, it's not a new agey type place.
Yeah.
And there was UFO sightings all the time in the 80s. I sent you all those New York Times articles.
Yeah, you did.
So it's something like, it's been no mystery to me for a long time. And I don't need to proselytize on it. My personal belief is it's probably more like technology that was developed here somewhere and somebody's keeping it super secret than it necessarily is like UFOs. But I'll tell you a story. We don't know what they are, but I don't know that it's aliens. But so my town, very commonplace. The cops would see it. All these people would see it. One day we're driving up this road called Lake Oscawana Road, which is this main road in Putnam Valley. And my buddy's dad, who's like a Vietnam vet, is driving, a bunch of his son's teenage friends in the back of this car. And we see it. We see it above the road, like a saucer, like a big flying saucer way up in the sky moving. And we're like, oh my God, look at that. So we pull off the road into the Putnam Valley Elementary School parking lot. And we get out and we look at this thing. This guy's dad is like deer hunter, hardcore Republican, like Vietnam vet guy. And he's like, guys, I don't know what that is. I was in Vietnam. Like, I've seen every kind of like aircraft our military has. That ain't anything like our government has. I don't know what it has. And we're like, oh my God. And it took off. So we
took off like really quickly. Like just was there for a second and then gone. Wow.
Gone. Right.
Wow, interesting.
No noise either. Right. The same description as you hear now. Exactly. I saw exactly the same thing. So we back in the car, we drive up, he drops us off to the lake, where we sit by the lake on a dock and drink beer. It's like a summer night or whatever. This is like late 80s. And we're telling our friends about it. We're like, the friends that were already there, we're like, you guys missed it, dude. We saw a UFO. Billy's dad even saw it. Like, it was totally a UFO. And we're telling our buddies about it. And then our one friend goes, there it is. And we turned around and it was now above the lake, but not far away. It was like right above the lake. It was the size of like 10 football fields, massive, completely silent, all these lights going around it, like not making any sound, but all these sort of pulsating lights around the middle.
It's circular thing.
Yes, in the middle. And the one thing I could say about it that was weird was that in my recollection, and even in that day, there was colors in the lights that I hadn't seen before, if that made any sense.
No, it doesn't make sense to me. What does that mean?
I know. There was colors in the spectrum that my brain couldn't like process, like not green, not red, not yellow. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying. I just can't imagine what that looks like because I wasn't there. But
it was like a color beyond purple. It was like a different color that was like, what the hell is that? And anyway, the whole thing was there for a minute or two, and we couldn't believe it. Awe-inspiring, gigantic. Whereas earlier we had seen it way high in the sky. Now it was
it following?
The lake was where they had a research center in the 80s. Okay. The lake, for some reason, was like an attractive thing for UFOs. That's why this town had so many sightings. For something underneath that, I don't know.
Maybe whoever was building it, if it's not a traditional alien ship, as one would expect with UFOs, maybe it was a human creation, maybe being built in the research center or under the lake or something.
Who knows? You know what I mean? But we're all like freaking out. It's sitting there and then it just disappeared. Like,
it is amazing to me that they always look the same. You always hear the same description. They always have this, circular thing, like in this graphic over here, with a light in the middle.
Just like that.
People get get pulled up, and I guess probed in it, whatever the situation was. But it's amazing to me that it's been the same picture since the 1950s, like the same image. So it makes me sometimes a little skeptical about UFOs. I'm not a big believer that the aliens are here. And for someone who's accused of being a conspiracy theorist a lot of the time, I can say that this one I just find just too far. And the fact that it could happen all at the same time is tricky for me. For me to think that Donald Trump, coronavirus, and UFOs all arriving at the same time, that's too much going on for a short period of time, plus climate change. But
and can I just say, I don't think it's aliens. I think it's something that was developed at Area 51 or something that the Russians came up with, some different kind of propulsion that's been under wraps for a long time, but needs to be used. So they take it out and fly it around. I think it's probably tied into Area 51 and stuff. I don't think it's little green men. I think it's something that was made terrestrially. I think it was something that was made here that has a military value that they can't let people know about. And they fly them out around and test runs and just pretend like it doesn't exist.
I can't believe how willing people are to abandon themselves into a UFO future, though. I'm always surprised by how everyone is like, oh my God, the UFOs is the UFOs now, and they accept it as a real possibility. It's probably not happening. It's probably not happening. It's okay. That thing is probably not happening right now. But who knows? I've said that many times in the last 5 years. Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.